My name is Carrie Morgan. I'm 33 years old. And this is the story of how I walked into a celebration and left having exposed my sister's darkest truth. The day the invitation arrived, the sky over my quiet coastal town in California was a perfect light blue, warm, and cloudless. I stood in the middle of my living room, staring down at the cream-colored envelope in my hand. It was embossed with gold vines and delicate lettering, too polished to be sincere. The card inside read, "Celebrating 12 years of marriage, Emily and Jonathan Rivers. Saturday, 7 p.m. Rosemont Hotel." Black tie. My hands trembled, not from excitement, but from the weight of memory. The kind of trembling you feel when touching something familiar and sharp. I hadn't seen Emily in months. That had been intentional. Emily is my older sister by 4 years, and for most of my life, I thought that meant I owed her something. Deference. Love. Forgiveness. But being related doesn't mean being safe. It took me most of my adult life to realize that. When we were kids, Emily wasn't a monster. Not on the surface. She was the kind of girl neighbors adored, perfect grades, charming smile, always knew what to say to make adults beam. But behind the charm was a surgeon's precision for cruelty. When I was 12, I made the dance team. Mom bought me a soft blue tutu I loved more than anything. It vanished the day of the recital. I cried until my face turned blotchy. Emily had buried it in the trash beneath old yogurt cups. "Maybe you lost it," she said with a straight face. Kids forget things all the time. By 17, I was dating a boy named Dylan. He was shy, kind, the kind of boy who held doors and lent you books instead of blowing up your phone. 2 weeks after she offered to help him with physics, I saw them kissing at the lake where he and I used to go. When I confronted her, she smiled and said, "Love's not about fairness. It's about who gets there first." You might ask, where were my parents through all of this? Standing on the sidelines. Mom, mostly. She'd brush off every incident with that same tight-lipped sigh, "Emily's intense, but she's not bad. Don't make a fuss, Carrie." Years of that broke something inside me. I stopped telling. I started swallowing the anger like sugarless medicine. It tasted bitter, but I told myself it was healing me. At 24, I bought my first apartment. I worked overtime shifts, skipped vacations, passed on new clothes for 2 years to save the down payment. It was small but mine. I invited the family to celebrate. Emily showed up late, in a fire-red dress, holding a bottle of wine, and my ex. My ex. They kissed right there in my living room. I felt the walls blur. Emily leaned in, eyes twinkling. "Cute place. You always did go for fragile ones." That night, I cleaned up alone. No one stayed to help. For years, I thought silence was survival. That if I just kept enduring, Emily would change. If I loved her hard enough, she'd become someone worth calling my sister. But that kind of hope is poison dressed in patience. So when the invitation came, you'd think I'd throw it in the trash. Burn it. Ignore it. But instead, I smoothed the crease down the middle and whispered to myself, "Not this time." Saturday came fast. The Rosemont Hotel sparkled with too much gold, too much glass, too much illusion. I arrived in an ivory gown, simple, silk, no sequins or statement jewelry. Just me. Real, present, no longer hiding behind politeness or fear. As I walked through the grand ballroom, chandeliers glistened above me like polished eyes, and laughter floated like perfume. People dressed in tuxedos and high heels sipped champagne and told stories with exaggerated smiles. It was the kind of room where people lied with grace. I was halfway to the bar when I heard a voice behind me. "Carrie?" I turned. Jonathan stood there, holding a glass of white wine. Emily's husband. The man who had unknowingly been pulled into her perfect little performance for the world. He looked genuinely surprised. "Didn't think you'd come." I smiled, carefully. I wasn't sure myself until this morning. Jonathan's eyes scanned my face like he was seeing someone he hadn't truly looked at in a long time. You look, well. So do you, I said. He glanced around, then leaned in slightly. Beautiful party. Emily planned every detail. Of course. I nodded, sensing the hollowness in his tone. She always had a talent for appearances. He gave a quiet laugh, more bitter than amused. She plans just enough sparkle to stop people from asking what's rotting underneath. I blinked. That was the first crack. He caught himself, then gestured to the balcony. I shouldn't be saying this tonight, but, he hesitated. There's something you should know. Out on the balcony, the city lights were blurred by the glass railing and the soft jazz leaking through the walls. Jonathan rested his hands on the stone ledge. This marriage, it's a cage. I didn't interrupt. I used to think it was stress, routine. But I've lost the ability to breathe freely. Emily controls everything. My schedule, my diet, even the pillows I sleep on. I used to call it devotion. But it's obsession. My chest tightened. I knew that grip. That feeling of being watched, judged, corrected. Emily did it with a smile, with compliments that sliced like razors. I tried therapy, Jonathan said. She went once. Then said I was the one who needed help. That I was weak. She laughed when I mentioned boundaries. I finally asked, then why stay? He exhaled, gaze far away. Because I was stupid enough to believe she could change. I thought if I was calm enough, steady enough, she'd see me. She didn't. He looked at me then, really looked. Carrie, if I'm ever not around her, don't think I gave up. Some people leave to survive. The orchestra inside signaled the transition to dinner. I nodded, unsure how to respond. Jonathan walked back in, blending into the partygoers. But something about what he said stayed with me like a humming under my skin. Back inside, the tables were set with perfection. My name was printed on a card in pink cursive, seated right beside Emily's. My champagne glass shimmered with delicate bubbles, and beside it was a strawberry dipped in white chocolate. On the plate rested a card, to the best little sister. Love, E. Her handwriting. Loopy, innocent. My stomach twisted. I didn't sit. I stood there, watching the light flicker across the glass. Then something caught my eye, a reflection in the mirrored panel just beyond the table. Emily. Behind the floral arrangement. I watched as she reached into her purse, pulled out something small, and with a motion so fluid it looked choreographed, tipped it into my glass. She didn't know I was watching. She turned away, smiling. And in that moment, everything inside me snapped into focus. No more hoping. No more silence. I wasn't the same Carrie she once manipulated. She had just drugged the wrong sister. I didn't blink. Didn't move. I just stood there, heart thudding so loud it drowned out the orchestra. The champagne still sparkled, delicate and pristine, as if it held no secrets. But I had seen it. Through the mirror. Through the years. Through the lies. I turned slowly, every muscle in my body trained not to betray the storm raging underneath. People around me laughed, toasted, embraced. No one saw the predator among them. No one saw the trap laid beneath all the glitter. But I did. I walked toward the bar, keeping the champagne in hand. Emily had planned this night down to the last ribbon-tied napkin, and I had no doubt that glass was part of her script. Whatever she slipped into it, it wasn't kindness. It never was. By the bar, Jonathan stood alone again, looking at a photo on his phone, a picture of them on their wedding day, maybe. He looked lost. But not drunk. Not drugged. Not yet. I approached with a calm smile. Hey, I said lightly. I think we should toast. He raised an eyebrow. To what? To surviving 12 years of love, I guess. I raised the champagne flute, smiling wider. That deserves at least one celebratory sip, doesn't it? Jonathan chuckled. You don't drink champagne. Tonight's different. He lifted his glass of whiskey. Then we toast together. No, I said, stepping in a little closer. Let's switch. He frowned. Why? I lowered my voice. Because I need to know. For a moment, he hesitated. Then, without a word, he handed me the whiskey, and I passed him the champagne. Our fingers brushed. I watched him bring the glass to his lips. I almost stopped him. Almost. But I needed proof. I needed to be sure it wasn't just me imagining things like everyone always claimed. He took a sip. Just one. And I saw it, barely perceptible, the slight twitch in his eye, the furrow of his brow. Not immediate. But it was coming. Across the room, Emily saw it too. She had been laughing with a woman in pearls, but her gaze had flicked toward me the second she noticed the exchange. Her laugh died mid-syllable. She stared. And in that exact moment, I knew. She hadn't expected to be seen. She never did. Her whole life was performance without consequence. But now, the curtain was twitching. She started walking toward me, her heels echoing like gunshots across the hardwood floor. You seem calm, she said, her voice wrapped in silk. I am, I said. Jonathan just shared something interesting. She raised an eyebrow. Did he? I looked at her, dead center. Did you enjoy the champagne? Emily's jaw tightened. Why would I? Because he drank it, I said plainly. The one you spiked. Her face didn't crack. Not yet. She tilted her head slightly, smile pinned to her lips like a brooch. What are you talking about? I saw you. In the mirror. That got her. Just for a second. A blink. A breath caught too fast. I didn't do anything, she whispered. You always think the worst of me. You've earned it. She leaned in, her tone dropping to a sharp hiss. You have no idea what you've done. Neither do you. Jonathan's the one who drank it. Her eyes snapped toward her husband, who was now gripping the edge of the table, blinking hard, looking like he was trying to remember where he was. Panic flickered across her face. Not fear for him. Fear of exposure. I just wanted you to relax, she said. You came in here ready to cause trouble. No, I said, louder this time. You invited me to humiliate me. Again. Like always. Only this time, you went too far. Jonathan was swaying now. A guest near him reached out but hesitated. And then, he collapsed. Face first into the gift table. The crash echoed through the ballroom like a warning shot. Gasps erupted. Silver boxes rolled across the floor. Someone screamed. I ran toward him, pushing through stunned guests. Jonathan. He was semi-conscious, his lips pale, sweat running down his face. What's happening? A woman asked. Is he drunk? No, I said, kneeling beside him. He was drugged. Emily arrived seconds later, face pale, breath shallow. He just needs air, she said too quickly. He had a long day. Don't touch him, Jonathan croaked, his voice slurred. She flinched. I turned to the crowd. Someone call 911. One of the hotel staff ran for the phone. The rest of the guests stood frozen, trapped between confusion and dawning horror. Emily's hand gripped my arm like a vice. Don't do this, she hissed. You already did. A woman in a navy dress turned to my mother. Is this true? Did something happen to him? My mom looked like someone had pulled the floor out from beneath her. She didn't answer. Couldn't. My father stepped in, expression tight. Carrie? She tried to drug me, I said, my voice cutting through the murmurs. I saw her. She spiked my drink. I switched glasses with Jonathan. He drank it. Silence fell. Even the music had stopped. Emily's face changed. The performance was over. No more tears. No more fake confusion. Fine, she said quietly. It was just one pill. Ativan. It wasn't going to hurt you. You mean it wasn't supposed to hurt me, I snapped. That's not the same. Sirens wailed outside. Red and blue lights washed over the ballroom windows. Emily's breath caught. I didn't mean. You never mean to, I cut her off. You just do it anyway. Paramedics stormed in. They lifted Jonathan carefully, asking questions as they checked his vitals. Emily tried to follow but was stopped by a police officer at the door. Ma'am, we need to ask you a few questions, he said. The crowd parted around her like she was radioactive. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt hollow. Exhausted. But I stood tall. Because for the first time in my life, someone believed me. The masks were off. And Emily couldn't hide behind family anymore. The ballroom had transformed from a celebration into a silent battleground. What was once filled with glittering champagne and carefully arranged roses now felt like a cold interrogation chamber, lit by panic and disbelief. The only sound cutting through the stunned hush was the crackle of the police radio and the low murmurs of medics as they wheeled Jonathan away on the stretcher. My mother, Judith, clutched her pearls like a lifeline, eyes darting from the officer to Emily to me. My father stood stiff, his jaw clenched so tightly it seemed like it might snap. He didn't ask questions. Not yet. Not in front of everyone. Emily sat in a nearby chair, still trying to look composed, but her hands gave her away. She gripped her knees so tightly her knuckles turned white. The police officer, a short, firm-voiced man in his 50s, stood beside her with a notepad. You said the medication was yours, he asked evenly. Emily cleared her throat. Yes. Prescribed. I've had anxiety issues, it's in my name. And you placed it in your sister's drink? No, she said quickly, that's not what happened. She's lying, I said from across the room. He turned to me. Miss Carrie Morgan. I saw her. She dropped it into my glass while I was turned around. But I saw her reflection in the mirror behind the table. Emily scoffed. This is ridiculous. We're sisters. Why would I do that? Because it's what you've always done, I said. You humiliate me. Undermine me. And this time, you wanted everyone to see me fall apart at your precious party. Gasps echoed around us. The crowd that had come for a glittering anniversary was now witnessing a public reckoning, and they couldn't look away. A woman in a green dress murmured to her husband, "Is that true? Did she drug her own sister?" The officer raised a hand. Let's get statements from everyone separately. We'll start with you, Ms. Morgan. I followed him out of the ballroom, down a hallway to a private conference room just off the lobby. I gave my statement clearly, calmly, as the adrenaline burned itself out in my bloodstream. I told him about the reflection. About the years of emotional abuse. About why I switched glasses. About Jonathan's reaction. When I finished, the officer nodded. We'll collect the glass and run toxicology. If what you're saying checks out, and if the substance matches her prescription, this will go on record. I swallowed. Will she be arrested? That depends. Ativan is legal with a prescription. But spiking someone's drink, especially in a public venue, and without consent, can be considered a criminal offense. If your brother-in-law presses charges, it's more serious. She won't admit it. Maybe not, he said. But she doesn't need to. The facts might speak loud enough. The next few hours blurred. I rode in the ambulance with Jonathan. He drifted in and out of sleep, the medicine still in his system. His skin was clammy, and he whispered fragments of sentences I couldn't piece together. The paramedic gave me a nod of quiet reassurance. He's lucky. That dosage on an empty stomach, mixed with alcohol, could have suppressed his breathing. You did the right thing switching glasses. The weight of those words hit me. If I hadn't, what then? At St. Augustine Hospital, he was admitted for overnight observation. I stayed. Not because I had to, but because I couldn't leave him. Not like that. Hours passed in soft beeps and murmured nurse conversations. Around 1 a.m., Jonathan stirred, his voice rough. "Carrie?" "I'm here," I said, pulling the chair closer. "What happened?" "You drank the champagne," I said gently. "The one Emily tampered with." He blinked. "She really did it." "I saw her." "And the police know. They're taking statements." Jonathan shut his eyes again. "I knew she'd try something tonight. I didn't think she'd go that far." I paused. "Are you okay?" His lips curled into a tired, broken smile. "No. But I'm done pretending." I took his hand. "You don't have to go back to that house." "I'm not," he said flatly. "I'll call a lawyer in the morning." He paused. "You saved me tonight." "You saved yourself," I replied. The next morning, the news had spread. Photos of the night, even blurry snapshots of Jonathan's collapse, had made it onto social media. The captions varied, some guessing he was drunk, others speculating health issues. But one post caught fire. Sources say someone tried to drug a guest at the Rivers anniversary party. Rumors point toward the host's own wife. Emily hadn't been arrested yet. But she was being investigated. The hotel confirmed they had footage, and they were cooperating. My phone buzzed with calls and texts. Half from people I hadn't heard from in years, curious, hungry, nosy. The other half from family members demanding to know why I would ruin the party. But one message stood out. It was from my father. Sunday. 2 p.m., family meeting. No excuses. Everyone. I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at that message for a long time. My first instinct was to ignore it. To stay home. To shut the door on all of them. But then I remembered Jonathan's voice in that hospital bed. "I'm done pretending." And I realized I was too. When I walked into the family home that Sunday, the air was thick with quiet. The same house that had once felt like a prison of politeness and passive aggression now felt like a courtroom. Emily sat at the dining table in jeans and a wrinkled blouse. No makeup. No jewelry. Her hair was pulled back into a low, unstyled ponytail. My mother hovered by the teapot, unsure of whether she was host or bystander. My father stood near the window, arms crossed. I sat down across from Emily. I didn't speak. She looked up, her voice hoarse. "Can I start?" No one stopped her. "I've been in therapy every day since the party," she said. 2-hour sessions. Emergency intervention. I'm not here to ask for forgiveness. I'm here because I want to stop lying, to myself, to all of you. She looked at me directly. I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. And before you say it, I know that's not an excuse. I know what I did was wrong. I didn't flinch. Emily's voice trembled. The pills, the lies, the jealousy, it all comes from this pit inside me that tells me I'm only worth something if I'm in control. If people see me as the best, the brightest, the one on top. But that's not love. It's fear. It's sickness. I sat back, arms folded. My father cleared his throat. "So, what happens now?" Emily looked at me. "That's not up to me. That's up to Carrie." My mother finally spoke. You could press charges. I shook my head. That's Jonathan's decision. Not mine. Emily's eyes welled up. I don't expect to be part of the family again. I just want to make amends. Even if it takes years. Even if you never trust me again. I didn't answer right away. My chest was tight. Not with hate. Not even with sadness. But with exhaustion. I'm not ready to forgive you, I said at last. But I'm also not going to let you define me anymore. Emily nodded slowly. Fair. And for once, she didn't try to twist it. No theatrics. No tears. Just truth. The first I'd ever heard from her. I didn't plan to return to the family home after that Sunday. But therapy sessions began anyway, one per week, exactly as agreed. Family therapy, led by a woman named Dr. Renee Lawson, whose office smelled like cedarwood and reality. The first session felt like walking barefoot over broken glass, each sentence laced with something sharp. Dr. Lawson didn't coddle. She didn't let Emily spiral into explanations or let my mother derail with guilt-soaked excuses. Instead, she asked direct questions that left no room for avoidance. What do you believe Carrie lost when she trusted you, Emily? Emily looked down. Her sense of safety. Her voice. And do you think she should just give those back because you're now in therapy? No, Emily whispered. I think she has every right to hate me. Hate. It was a word I'd avoided. A word that had weight. But sitting there, across from the woman who used to call me a mistake when we fought, who weaponized affection like a prize I had to earn, I didn't hate her. I felt separate. Like she was an artifact from a life I used to be buried inside. In week 2, Mom cried. I just wanted you girls to get along. I thought if I ignored the tension, it would go away. Dr. Lawson tilted her head. You didn't ignore the tension. You ignored Carrie. That statement alone caused a silence so deep, you could hear the teacup settling into its saucer like thunder. By week 3, my father had spoken more in one session than he had in the last decade. I used to think silence kept the peace. But peace without justice is just pretending. That sentence stuck with me. Because that's what my whole childhood had been. Pretending. Pretending Emily wasn't cruel. Pretending I wasn't hurt. Pretending our family was normal. But Emily wasn't pretending anymore. Not exactly. She showed up to every session. She listened. She didn't interrupt. She didn't beg. She owned what she could. She said, again and again, you don't have to forgive me. I just don't want to keep pretending either. Around the same time, I started rebuilding my own life, one boundary at a time. I had been working as a freelance UX designer for a local firm, but I'd always kept myself small. I turned down high-profile clients because I didn't want attention. I avoided awards. I deleted compliments. But the night of the anniversary party changed something in me. I realized I'd spent years shrinking, afraid that stepping into the light would make me a target for Emily again. That fear no longer ruled me. So I applied for a regional creative director position at one of the top digital agencies in San Diego. I didn't tell anyone. When I got the job offer, I accepted it on the spot. 6 figures. Team of 12. Company car. The kind of job Emily would have mocked before, or tried to sabotage. Not this time. This time, I didn't invite her into the moment. It was mine. About a month after Jonathan was discharged from the hospital, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Just a neatly folded note inside. Thank you for letting me be human that night. And for not letting me stay a monster. It was unsigned. But I knew the handwriting. Jonathan's. I hadn't seen him since the hospital, but I'd heard bits through mutual friends. He filed for divorce quietly, handled everything through attorneys, and moved into a condo overlooking the water. Word was, he'd started seeing someone, a music teacher. Someone quiet. Someone kind. He never reached out beyond the note. And I didn't press. Sometimes survival means distance. And sometimes distance is love in disguise. One evening, just before our final scheduled therapy session, I got a text from Emily. "If you're free this weekend, I'd like to take you for coffee. No pressure. Only if you want to talk." I stared at it for a long time. The version of me from last year would have deleted it. Blocked her. Closed the door. But I wasn't that version anymore. So I said yes. We met at a tiny cafe near the train yard, with warm lights and no-frills decor. Emily arrived early. Her hair was pinned back, face bare. No high heels. No armor. She looked plain. And it suited her. "Thanks for coming," she said softly. I sat across from her. "You said you wanted to talk." "I don't have an agenda," she said. I'm trying to relearn how to talk without trying to win." That stopped me. Because that was Emily, always in a competition no one else had agreed to join. "I used to think I needed people to need me," she continued. "But what I really needed was to be seen. And when people looked at you, I felt invisible." "I never wanted to compete with you," I said. "I know," she replied, eyes glossy. "That's what made me hate you more. You never had to try. You were just enough." There it was. Not envy. Not rivalry. Grief. Grief that she wasn't okay with herself. And the rest of us became casualties of her war with her own reflection. "I'm not ready to call us sisters again," I said, my voice steady. "But I don't want to hate you." She nodded. "That's more than I deserve." We sipped in silence. For once, the quiet wasn't heavy. Before we left, she pulled something from her bag. A small journal. The cover was soft leather, worn at the edges. "My therapist asked me to keep this," she said. "Would you read a few pages? Just so you know I'm not faking it?" I hesitated, then took it. "Maybe." Emily smiled. It was small. Real. When we parted, she didn't hug me. She just said, "You can just call me Emily. No need for sister, not unless you feel it one day." I didn't reply right away. But as I turned to go, I touched her shoulder lightly. That was my answer. I spent that night reading. Her journal wasn't dramatic. No grand declarations. Just raw, honest confusion and pain and recognition. She wrote about how shame sat like acid in her stomach. How power had always felt safer than vulnerability. How the worst moment of her life wasn't when Jonathan collapsed, but when she realized no one leapt to defend her. That's what woke her up. Not the scandal. The silence. The same silence she once forced me to live in. She'd finally heard it. And maybe, just maybe, she was ready to live differently. By the time fall rolled in with its crisp mornings and slow-burning sunsets, something strange had taken root in my life, peace. Not the kind you announce to the world. Not Instagrammable serenity. But a quiet, steady peace that came from knowing I had nothing left to hide, and nothing left to prove. I didn't talk to Emily every week. We weren't suddenly friends. But there was no longer a war between us. Just a long, overgrown path that might one day be cleared, if we both kept doing the work. Meanwhile, my new position at the San Diego firm had taken off like wildfire. I found myself mentoring junior designers, flying out to pitch sessions in Chicago and Austin, building campaigns that lit up digital billboards in Times Square. The first time I saw one of my ads live on a 20-foot screen, I cried. Quietly, in a taxi, while no one was looking. Because for so long, I thought my life would never be big. Because Emily told me, again and again, that I was the soft one, the one who needed hand-holding. The too sensitive sister who would always live in her shadow. But shadows only exist when there's light. And now I was finally standing in mine. One Saturday morning, I received an envelope in the mail. Handwritten, no stamp. It had been dropped off. Inside was a letter. No signature, but I knew immediately who it was from. Carrie. I don't know if you'll ever read this, or if it will matter when you do. But I had to write it. Not because I expect anything. But because some truths need to be said without an audience, without a therapist, without a performance. I remember the night of my wedding anniversary like a film I didn't realize I was starring in. I can't explain what snapped inside me when I saw you walk in, calm and beautiful and composed. You always had that ability to be quiet and still and powerful, while I was always loud, chaotic, and scared. When I saw you talking to Jonathan, something in me twisted. Not because I thought you were taking him from me. But because I realized, in that moment, that you could see him. Really see him. The way I never had. The truth? I never wanted to drug you to hurt you. I wanted you to fall apart. Just a little. So I could feel like the stronger sister for once. So I wouldn't feel so irrelevant. It's disgusting, I know. I've replayed it 1,000 times in therapy, and I still can't believe I was capable of that. But what haunts me isn't just what I did that night. It's the years before. The things I took from you. The small, constant cuts. The trust one shattered piece by piece, all while smiling. I don't know if I'll ever get to be in your life again. Not really. But I will spend every year I have left trying to become someone who deserves the chance. I'll never ask for the word sister back. Just maybe, one day, human. I sat on my balcony with that letter clutched to my chest, legs curled beneath me as a slow wind played with the edge of the paper. It didn't make me cry. Not this time. It just settled in my soul like a soft rain after a wildfire. That was the thing about healing, it wasn't loud. It didn't come with music swells or dramatic speeches. It came like this. Quiet. Private. Real. 3 weeks later, there was a family gathering. It wasn't a reunion. Just a modest barbecue in the backyard of my parents' house. My father's idea, again. No speeches, no drama. Just grilled corn and unsaid things. I arrived late. Not because I was trying to make an entrance. But because I wanted to be sure I could leave if it didn't feel right. Emily was already there. She sat in the far corner, reading a paperback under the shade of the old sycamore. She didn't wave. Didn't stand. Just looked up and nodded once. I nodded back. That was enough. Later, as I was placing a plate of food down beside the salad bowl, my mom approached. She's really trying, you know, she said softly. I know. I didn't see it. All those years. I just didn't want to believe she could be so cruel. I didn't want to believe it either, I replied. That's why it lasted so long. My mom looked older than I remembered. Her voice was thinner. But there was a sincerity in her eyes that hadn't been there before. I should have protected you. You can still stand by me now, I said. She reached for my hand. I will. As twilight painted the sky in strokes of orange and rose, the backyard lights flickered on. People gathered around the picnic table with warm drinks and 2 sweet desserts. Laughter returned, cautious but real. I sat beside my father as he lit a cigar, more for habit than for pleasure. He exhaled smoke slowly. You're not the same girl anymore, he said. No, I agreed. I'm proud of you. I should have said that years ago. Should have done more. You can start now. He nodded, smiling. Good. Then, without turning his head, he added, she asked me not to make a toast. She said she hasn't earned one yet. She's right, I said. A pause. Then he asked, do you think she ever will? I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. Some damage could be repainted. Some couldn't. What mattered now was choice. Mine. And I chose peace. Later, as I walked to my car, Emily stood near the driveway, alone, arms crossed. Not waiting. Just present. You don't have to speak, she said. But thank you for letting me be here. I opened my door. Paused. Looked at her. You're right, I replied. I don't have to. But I didn't drive away. I stood there. Not as her sister. Not as her victim. But as a woman who had finally reclaimed her own story. And for the first time, she didn't try to rewrite it. It's been a year now. 12 months since that night at the Rosemont Hotel. Since chandeliers sparkled above a crumbling marriage and a poisoned champagne glass almost shattered what was left of a man's trust, and mine. A year since I stopped letting my family rewrite my reality in rose-colored ink. And somehow, the world didn't end when the truth came out. It began. I live in San Diego now, full-time. My apartment is 3 blocks from the ocean, and I've developed the strange and wonderful habit of walking barefoot on the sand before client calls. My company recently landed a Fortune 500 account. They wanted someone who understood people. The irony makes me smile sometimes. Because for most of my life, I was the one people never bothered to understand. Now, they pay me to do it. Emily hasn't tried to contact me much. Maybe once a month, I get a message. Never too long. Never too intrusive. Sometimes it's a quote from therapy. Sometimes a song we used to play on Mom's stereo when we were kids. Sometimes just, hope you're still writing. I always read them. I don't always respond. And she never pushes. A few months ago, I visited Jonathan. He invited me for tea, no pretense. His new place was modest but clean, warm, filled with quiet music and books stacked on every surface like old friends. I still go to therapy, he told me, pouring honey into my mug. Emily didn't just mess up your sense of self. She nearly broke mine. How are you now? I asked. He considered the question. Whole. Not healed. But whole. I nodded. That made sense. Some scars don't need to fade, they just need to stop bleeding. Before I left, he handed me a photo. From years ago. It was from one of our family summers at Big Bear Lake. I was 10, Emily was 14. I was building a sandcastle. She stood behind me, arms crossed, watching. In the photo, I'm smiling. I didn't remember the moment. But the expression on Emily's face said everything. Not joy. Not pride. Just distance. She always looked at you like that, Jonathan said quietly. Like you were something she didn't know how to love. I took the photo and slid it into my journal. Not to treasure. But to remember. To never let myself be unseen again. This morning, I got a package. Inside was a book, leather-bound, stitched with care. A title embossed in gold, Letters to the Sister I Never Learned to Be. Inside were pages of Emily's therapy journal. Printed and bound. Names redacted. But not her truth. The first page read. Carrie. If you're reading this, it means I've finally stopped asking to be forgiven, and started trying to be worth forgiving. I closed the book gently and stared out the window, watching a sailboat glide through the morning fog. It would take time. Years, maybe. But the difference now? I had time. And I wasn't afraid of it anymore. At our next family gathering, Thanksgiving, Emily sat at the far end of the table. She helped cook. She didn't lead the conversation. She didn't command attention. She just passed the mashed potatoes quietly, laughed when appropriate, and cleared her own plate without being asked. When someone mentioned the incident, she didn't flinch. She just nodded and said, "That was the worst night of my life. And I deserved every consequence." And no one disagreed. Not even Mom. Later, after dessert, she walked over to me on the porch. The wind had picked up, rustling the dry leaves along the driveway. "I brought something," she said. She held out a photograph. A new one. It was the same beach where we'd taken that photo years ago. But now it was empty, no people, just the shore and the waves. "I took it last week," she said. "That's the place where I realized I don't hate you. I just didn't know how to love without competing." I took the photo and stared at it for a long time. "You don't have to fix everything," I said. "I know," she replied. "I just want to be someone you can walk beside without armor." I didn't answer. But I didn't walk away either. And that was something. I want to tell you this. Not all family is safe. Not all wounds should be ignored just because they come from blood. Sometimes, survival means silence. But healing? Healing means speaking. Even if your voice shakes. Even if no one believes you, yet. The night my sister tried to drug me was the same night I learned I would never be the same again. Not because she won. But because I stopped letting her. Because I stepped out from behind her shadow and into the light of my own power. That night broke something. But it also built something new. Boundaries. Truth. And the understanding that love without respect isn't love at all. If you've ever been gaslit by someone close, if you've ever been told you were too sensitive while your world was unraveling, this is your reminder. You're not crazy. You're not weak. You are not the problem just because you say the problem out loud. And maybe, like me, one day you'll look back and realize, the moment you finally said enough wasn't your breaking point. It was your beginning. Thank you for watching Revenge Echoes. If Carrie's story moved you, share your thoughts in the comments. Has someone in your life crossed the line in the name of family? What would forgiveness look like for you? And don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us for more true feeling stories that speak louder than revenge.